Yeah, broadcasting from Australia, real continent, for Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com. That's right, Revolution Radio, that's it. Where it's more than just radio. So jump in the chat room, we're in there. Yes, we are both in there. I just checked. If you can. If you're online and you listen to this, it really is worthwhile. Great conversations that happen in there, not always related to the show, but that's all goodness, stream of consciousness and all that. This is show number 412. 210 and 400. We're going to talk about bioweapons. Timely, I think. It's on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a great tabletop digital radio. If you missed 2 hours of the show, shame on you. I don't know. I missed it too. But if you did miss it, it only costs $5 a month to access the Freedom Slips archives. $5 a month. Come on. And you can check out her shows, our shows, any shows, all the host shows. You say that real fast, real quick, a lot. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. For me, that's the Daruk people. And for Dave...
Dark and Jung.
Thank you, Dave. And I would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. A real thing, and more timely than ever. Just very quickly, what we have seen here in Australia over the last, really 2 weeks. It's only been 2 weeks. We've seen extreme heat, which occasioned and attending drought. Now, the drought had been with us for a lot longer, but the extreme heat probably 2 weeks, and then bushfires sprang up. Some deliberately lit, others naturally occurring. I mean, the Australian fauna and flora, more the flora I get than the fauna, I guess, depend on bushfires. Seed propagation and so forth. So the bush blooms after really bad fire. But so we had fire, right? There it is. It's 45 degrees. We're scratching 50 degrees Celsius, that is. It's very, very hot, very dry. And then the next week, it drops, it plummets by 25 degrees temperatures. And we experience extreme rain. So it's been bucketing down. There's widespread flooding on the eastern seaboard here. In my neighborhood, a tree came down, and I looked at it. Literally, I drove past it about half hour ago, and it hadn't. The tree wasn't broken. What had happened was it was a very tall tree, probably 20-meter tree, right? A very, very, very big tree. The earth had become so loose from the inundation, right? From the copious amounts of water soaking into the earth, that the roots could no longer hold the weight of the tree. So as also the foliage, or foliage rather, was also soaking up the water, so the top of the tree got heavier, and there was quite a strong wind blowing. It simply blew the tree over, lifting out the entire root bed. So there's this massive wall of dirt and roots that was lifted out, and the tree toppled onto the road. SES, Special Emergency Service, had already come and chopped it by the time I got there. But Dave, that's how soft the soil had gotten. There's massive flooding here on roads. Dave, why don't you relate what happened to you?
Yeah, well, Mackie's absolutely right with that crazy weather. So, too hot, then dry, then the fires. And we've had fires since, I think, August of last year. And there's... so I just want to narrow in on the fire for a sec. So in the south of Sydney, there is a region that's just recently burnt in the last 2 weeks. And they've filmed for the first time lightning coming and being originated. I think it's called pyroclasty cumulonimbus.
That's correct.
So it's the same thing that occurs with volcanoes when they erupt, and you have a pyroclastic column, not a pyroclastic flow. The flow can occur as that column collapses in superheated air and then rushes down the side of a volcano, and that's usually attributed to more deaths than lava, because lava is usually very slow. You could be, crushed by massive boulders in a volcanic eruption, however, or bad gases, all these things. But you can be baked in place by a pyroclastic flow. However, the pyroclastic, it sounds like plastic, but it's not. It's got a C. Pyroclastic effect affects lightning. And for the first time, they were able to film it in the South Coast fire, where the smoke column went straight up, high enough to break those the layer gaps. Sorry, it penetrated between the layers of the different parts of the atmosphere, generating enough electricity to start new fires with lightning. This isn't a dry storm. This is a whole new thing. So, it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Meki, when we filmed, maybe 10 years ago or something, when we filmed for the first time the Firenado. So it's basically just a whirling wind of fire, which doesn't do very much. I mean, it's just all the inrush of clean, cool air to the fire, but through the shape of the fire front and the winds, it causes a spiraling of the hot air, localized to a very small, column, and it spins and it looks like a tornado, but except it's made of fire. So that's good, right? That was great. And it went viral. There's pictures of it all around the world, and everyone really enjoyed seeing this, mesmerizing, because flames are mesmerizing, right? If you ever sat in front of an open fire when you're camping and, just staring into it, it's so relaxing, right? However, here's this thing that not only is it spotting downrange from the embers coming from the storm, and it's out of control, but it's now got lightning reaching out from it in directions that weren't thought possible. So I'm laughing because I'm flabbergasted that this is even a thing. It changes the way that I see, Meki, the way I always thought like the end of the world thing would happen. I never added. I can see flames. I can see things on fire. I can see it's that term hell on earth. I can see all of that, but I never thought I'd see lightning originating from the column of smoke. That is crazy, isn't it?
It's physics, and I mean, the reason we get lightning storms is because two fronts of air hit each other, a really cold front of air and a really hot front of air, right? And the I guess the ensuing friction between the two systems creates electricity, and then it leads to fairly large lightning storms. It's hot and cold weather, and this is the same if you think about it. It's really, really hot, right? And the heat rises to, eventually the stratosphere, but it's colder. The higher up in the atmosphere you go, the colder it gets. So this is the exact same effect that we are normally seeing with the normal formation of thunderstorms, right? It just so happens that these fires weren't big enough in the past to affect heat that much. What I mean by that is
we didn't get that effect. That's right.
No, because the heat was immense, of course, several thousand degrees Celsius, but it was more or less on the global scale. And I'm sorry, Flatlanders here, but the Earth is very big, so it appears flat. Right? It's very, very big. But the scale was still a relatively, compared to the surface of the Earth, a very small kind of area that's on fire. What happened now on the East Coast specifically, and it hasn't happened anywhere else before, and even the California fires, even the Siberian and Brazilian fires, right, much smaller than what we're talking about in Australia here, they covered such a large area, and they were generating so much heat across this large area that we are seeing this. I mean, it's a normal meteorological effect, right, where heat and cold get together to create these thunderstorms. It's just the first time ever that the fires were big enough to do that. Now, interestingly enough, and I don't know if we knew this would happen, but this is obviously new learning. If you think about nuclear war and things like we could very well add that to the list of things that would happen. Forget nuclear winter. We were talking about nuclear thunderstorms, really, right? So it's fascinating stuff, my friend. And It's I don't know if we have any Foot Rot Flat readers here. It's New Zealand a comic strip, which was like a periodical in daily newspapers. It's short stories. But I read the collections, and one of the collections had I think the farmer, and I think it was Murray was his name. Can't remember, and his dog. Foot Rot, I think his name was, and they were in the front cover, and they were on a branch, or rather a trunk. They were on a tree trunk. The tree trunk was in the water. In the distance, you could see flames, right? So, but they were clearly fighting a flood. And then the farmer goes. He's looking like a real Ocker character in cartoonish style, of course, but a Cooper head. He goes, "Fire, flood! What's next?" And you see these rats coming onto the tree trunk. So clearly and the dog thinks, "Oh, clearly pestilence is next," right? And interestingly enough, the four riders of the apocalypse are with us now. So we've always had war and famine with us, right? But now we have a pestilence as well. So we had fire and flood, at least in Australia, other parts of the world as well, other disasters, volcanic eruptions, there were some really bad avalanches, earthquakes, and so all these natural disasters, some of them, you can argue they're man-made because of climate change. Don't want to get into that debate. Let's just say climate is changing. Others are harder to pinpoint, right? Like, again, earthquakes and such. But so we have these disasters, and then we have pestilence. And I don't want to go straight into show notes, of course, but we now need to look at what's happening in the world. The coronavirus is a lot worse than some people thought, but we have to keep an understanding of just it is in relation to everything else. It is still more likely to get killed by lightning than to die from the coronavirus. If you look at it statistically, okay, more people get killed by lightning each year than coronavirus. So yes, it is worrying because of the rapid spread and the infection of people. Now we're scratching 30,000, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that's a lot, just in case you're wondering. In fact, 35,000 have been infected. That's the latest number. And altogether, there are now 800 people 803 that have passed away. Okay, so in 2003, 774 people were killed by SARS altogether in more than 2,000 countries. So we have now surpassed that SARS number.
Do you have my image up there on your screen?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at another article here, but that's probably the same, right?
Yeah, it's a little old.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so the article here is 6 hours old. So
that's already old. So I sent you, just before the show, I sent you an update image of the graphs and the figures.
Gotcha. Here it is. Oh yeah, got it. Here. Now, if I only could see it by making it bigger, here we go. Okay, we are at. How many deaths do you have there, my friend? What do you think?
Deaths is 813.
So it's gotten up a bit. Okay, yep.
Yep.
And how many are infected? 37.
Infected in total is 37,555.
Yeah. So actually, just to illustrate, so the number I quoted you, which was 34,800, that was 7 hours ago. And in the 7 hours, we have another 3,000 people, pretty much infected, or at least came through as news. So that's why people are terrified of this thing, because it is such a fast-moving kind of infection.
So
and what worries me,
it's beat SARS in death toll so far, and MERS, Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, has had 858, and if we're at 813, I think we're going to surpass that easily.
Well, we haven't reached the peak of the infection. So scientists, doctors, they're not quite sure. Some say it'll peak in the next couple of weeks.
6 to
and
8
others
weeks.
Say exactly a couple of months. 100% correct. So either way, what worries me is that the first cases started happening in December in Hubei, right, in Wuhan. And it really didn't get bad until last week, really, like a couple of weeks ago. That's when it started to really take off, and then it took off with a vengeance. Yeah, but it didn't take very long to get to really scary numbers. Now, that's in a place where this thing had been for a month already. The places where it has gone overseas, right? And I'm hoping that our quarantine protocols are doing something. But essentially, we are now everywhere else in the world. We are now where China was back in December.
Mm-hmm.
That's the situation. So China was plodding along, a few infections here and there, and then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, just like, boom, right? Mid-January. So come mid-February, like another week or I want to give it another week or two. Let's say 2 weeks. If infections out of China stay at the level they are at, we should be okay. If we see the same kind of numbers that we saw as China seemed to snowball just last week, then I think we're in serious trouble. Okay, forget 20,000 infected, forget 100,000 infected. We're talking millions of people infected at that point.
Yeah, so I've plotted this out. I've got a graph on the screen, the one you've got, Meki, that I've made. Yep. And I've graphed it so, I've got it separated out just from China and then the rest of the world. I've got outpatients. So if you've either been declared dead or your symptoms have gone away, that you're considered an outpatient. And then I've got like the rate of change, because I think the rate of change tells us more about how it's spreading or whether they're just being documented or not documented. And each one of these has a trend line. So just working on China, right, for instance, right now, we're looking at China's total, which is 37,199. But you look, I'm thinking like the magic number is like the 19th of February, so 10 days from now, and they should have 100,000 people in China alone. In the current trend line, that's where it's trending. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, look, it's more than likely because it's still traveling along the path of the trend line quite happily. The rest of the world, it's snaking a little, but, it's getting there. And on the same date, for instance, on the 19th, we'd be looking at in around about 850 persons in the world infected rather than 356.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's one piece of good news. Well, I mean, if you can call it good news, the virus does not seem to be contagious in the incubation period. The study that initially said it was flawed, and interviews of the lady and fact checking, because there was actually someone in Germany that had made that statement.
That's the P0 for Germany, yeah.
So the lady said she actually was feeling sick, but she had just written it off as a mild flu or something, so she wasn't really too worried. She didn't say that she was sick, but she actually had presented symptoms. And because as soon as you present symptoms, bang, you're infectious. If you're incubating, then you're not. So it seems, again, grain of salt, it seems that it is not infectious pre-presentation. Right? It's not infectious pre-presentation.
That's good news.
It is good news.
You're still infectious after your symptoms have gone away.
Yeah, I need to understand where we find that information as well. I haven't seen it, Dave.
I can share that with you, not a problem.
Perfect. Again, having said all of that, again, the best way to avoid this thing is two things. Avoid crowds, right? That's number one. Number two, wash your hands with soap and water. Wash your hands, right? Or carry those little antibacterial things. They're pretty good as well, right? Just wipe them. Wipe your hands. Face masks, unless they actually completely isolate your respiratory system, like meaning there are no gaps between the skin and the mask, they're good. But if there are gaps, they're completely useless. You might as well not wear a mask. Pointless.
It is. Remembering that you have to breathe in their sneeze or their cough, right? Atomized bodily fluids is sufficient because that's where they do the PCR test and that's where they find it. And it'll happily live in your lungs. But it's the ACE2 receptor that this lives with and loves And it's the same as the SARS loved the ACE2, which is the bottom half of your lungs, not the upper respiratory system, like in your nasal cavity in your throat. It's definitely in your lungs, and that's a really hard place for it to go and also to excrete. But they're talking about it's also fecal, so it's also present there. So washing your hands, and they say that you should wash your hands by saying the happy birthday song twice in your head. That's about the length of time you should be washing your hands, and to be really clean. And you need to use soap. You can't just do it with water. You can't just rinse with water. And
Agreed.
just pretend like you're a doctor going into surgery, right? Wash your hands a lot. But Meckie, the saddest news from the deaths, and I know, and I'm not discounting the other 812 deaths, was the death of the doctor who was the leak doctor. I'm calling him the leak doctor. He was the Chinese doctor who said, hey, this is mid-December, something's going on. And he leaked it, and he was made to, along with other doctors, sign with his fingerprint that he was not going to say those kind of words again with the government, because the government forced his hand on it, and now he's passed away of the virus.
Yeah.
Goodness me, he was in his 30s. Because they say this is an old person's flu, and you're more likely to pass away should you have any other illnesses, which it would be a multiplier for, like hypertension, lung disorder, those kind of things. However, do you know what is also unusual, Meckie, about this? Yeah. And that is, it does seem on the onset right now that we're not getting as many patient human-to-human contact outside so far. I know it's early days, outside of China, and it doesn't appear to be. It seems to be short-lived in the Western world, and very mild symptoms for the majority of the people who have become infected. I mean, really mild. Only one person, I think it was in Malaysia, wasn't it, that passed away from it?
You mean non-initial contact? There's a person, I think it was the Philippines.
The Philippines, okay, I'm sorry. It's, look, I'll share with Meckie a bit later on, after the show, the MedCram video sequences where they're examining this virus and getting information from everywhere. And it's a great place to go, and you can find them on YouTube. They're just doctors talking about it and doing research and saying what is and what isn't peer reviewed, so that you can get a really good handle on it. And this is where other doctors are going. I'll just give you the tip. They're going there to have a look, to find out more, because the official channels are really slow on any information whatsoever. So, but the other thing, Meckie, was the cruise ship. So the cruise ship off Japan, because it's not officially any other country, it's now considered other. And it was originally 41, that turned to 61, and now there's 3 extras. Now it's 64 infected. Now a cruise ship is unique because it's a very small city. You are really confined. I've been on a number of cruises. You're sort of confined to a very small, working group of people, and it can go south on a cruise ship pretty quick, as other cruise ship infections have borne out. But they've been isolated, and like prison, they can't let everyone out at the same time. They've got to let certain groups out to get their vitamin D, to get their walk around on the deck, and then they've got to return back to their cabin again. And that's, I think this is day 3 of 2 weeks. Wow, what an experience. At least they're in a good place, and at least they're, I suppose they're being looked after. But they are, all the ones who are found that have been infected are being shipped from the ship. They're being removed and sent to different locations around Japan. Not a single location, which is really good, that they've got that attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, Meki? That's really
Yep.
fantastic that they're doing that. Having said all of that, I think it's still early days. I really do.
It is. We know this because the Chinese have not abated in their security measures. It has not been relaxed in any way. In fact, we've seen a much sharper approach by other countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Australia we've now shut the borders to China full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Others are following suit. Hong Kong is looking to do the same thing. And people say, oh, it's actually worse if we shut our borders. Well, we're not shutting the borders to information. We're shutting the borders to people. So it's really important to still take this seriously. I know it's no longer the top of the news cycle, right? I mean, the top of the news cycle, I can tell you what it is. It isn't that. It's really more around. There's a mass shooting in Thailand that killed 26 people,
Impeachment.
right? The impeachment is done. Like we never thought that Donald Trump would be removed from office.
No.
It was never going to happen. If the Democrats had the majority in the Senate, okay. But what we saw, except for Mitt Romney, a Republican, they voted along party lines. So Mitt Romney voted to find him guilty, Donald Trump. The others voted along their party lines, Democrats and Republicans, respectively. So no surprises at all there. And they're saying, well, he's impeached. Yeah, he was impeached, but you didn't find him guilty. So he'll keep on going. Will this hurt his chances of re-election? I look at and I am a student of politics. I just find this stuff fascinating. I look at your Democratic lineup. I don't think he's got much to worry about, to be honest with you.
Well, they're saying it's only going to be Bernie or that other guy, right? And that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. So you have Bernie, you've got Biden, right? So Trump did his best. See, Trump didn't worry about Bernie Sanders at all.
Yeah. Not
at all. He focused all his attentions on Biden because I think he sees Biden as a potential threat, which I agree with, right? But I don't know if I don't know if he smeared him enough to remove the threat, or if he just raised his profile so that people are going to vote for him. I find it hilarious. The whole thing is just funny to me because it doesn't make any difference. I'm not making fun of the Americans, by the way. Australia is much worse.
Mm-hmm.
We have much worse politicians. Our system is much worse. It is. Our system is actually much worse than the American system. In America, at least, when you vote for a guy or a girl, for that matter, you vote for them, and they're the people in office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your president. That's who you vote for, right? I mean, sometimes you don't even need the party. You could have an independent president, party neutral, completely, right? You could. In Australia, not possible. Not possible, because you never vote for the person. You vote for the party. It's the much ballyhooed Westminster two-party system. A complete failure of representative democracy, as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't represent anyone. These are career politicians, and not only are they career politicians, they're career party operatives. The infighting that we've seen over the last few years that have netted us, I think, some 52 prime. I'm exaggerating. We didn't have 52 prime ministers, but we had more prime ministers than we should have had.
We had 6 or something.
It was nuts.
And there's all backstabbing within the parties.
Yeah, exactly. It's the wrangling for. It's got nothing to do with the country. It's got nothing to do with better policies. That's completely irrelevant, right? So this is the game in Australia, because I really do want to explain to you that I'm not making fun of the Americans. I'm not looking down on the American system, which I think, if it was applied properly, then it could work really well. No, the Australian system is like this. So everybody, lines up behind a leader, male, female, doesn't really matter, and they go to the poll and tout the advantages of their party policies, by at the same time taking down the opposition. It's normal politics, I guess. And then they're in power. At that point, nothing matters. They're in power. If they've got a majority in Parliament, brilliant. Yeah, so they don't have to worry about any opposition, and so they do what they want. But once they have that power base, once they're in government, once they're elected, they then squabble amongst themselves as to who should have the top job. It's amazing. because the top job comes with many perks, obviously, right? There's a pension for life. There's
yeah, and flying.
There's
and you
this
get,
all kinds of
right.
all kinds of perks. Come on, you know. So, but these are people that have been in politics all their life for the most part, right? They're politicians. They came through the labor movement. Now, or they might have been fairly wealthy as well. Some in the Liberal Party, right? But my point is, very few of them, not all of them, but very few of them in the Labour Party and the Liberal Party, you know, the people that make up the caucus and the higher echelons of these parties, have ever really worked a day in their life.
That's right.
They have no idea what normal people struggle with, and that's the Australian system. Whereas in America, you can arguably say that, oh, look, I don't know how close Donald Trump is to the people, but a person in America could, if they got enough support, you know, on a grassroots level, could get elected. A regular person that, you know, speaks to people. It could happen.
That's right.
And that's completely impossible in Australia. It's completely impossible. I wanted to start a political party, needed 5,000 signatures. That could have been achievable, but then I realized I could never sit in Parliament. Why is that? Because I hold 2 passports. Can't sit in Parliament. Can't be done.
That's right.
Not gonna happen. Yeah, that's put paid to that, exactly.
But
anyway, look.
No. I think there's still some something worth still mentioning in this, and that is, you know, talk to your congressman, right? So Congress is supposed to vote, and here, because it's meant to be your local member of parliament that you're voting for in that party. You vote for the party that they represent because you like their stuff. It's, you know, mudslinging or mug raking and bringing the other player down to make you look good has been predominantly the winning ticket. So you don't even have to have an actual policy of your own. You only have to say that those other people's policies are terrible, even without mentioning any of your own ones. I think it's something else. I really do. If you got voted in because you didn't mention any of your own policies, you can do it if you want. Then you're not even lying when they say, "Oh, but you said that they were really terrible at that thing." Well, I was right. They are pretty bad, but you know what? I didn't say I was better. I just said they were bad. I think
that's true. That's so true.
It's right.
Right?
I know.
I know it's not a bad idea. The idea is poop. and you agreed with me, so there you are on your head beard.
That's right. I can do anything now because I didn't say I didn't promise anything. Look, politics is really, really rotten, and it's rotten to the core. And we've seen corruption, no end of corruption being detected, and they just, you know, it's. I got to be very careful. I'd have to say that the corruption is identified as being a responsibility of a single person who ends up just being the fall guy, and that makes the 24-hour news cycle make it go away, and that's the end of that. However, there was apparently an email that implicated our Prime Minister on the sporting rorts thing, where he said yes to do it, and yet here he is. We just call him, what is it? What's his name? Scotty from marketing. Right?
Scotty from marketing.
Yeah, that's a meme thing going on. Escomo, where the people who were fighting the bushfires wouldn't even shake his hand. He offered it, and they just, nah, you know what? I'm not doing that.
No. He tried to grab. There was a guy sitting down.
He grabbed, when he put his hand out and they didn't raise their hand to shake his hand, he lifted their hand and grabbed it and then shook it. Yep. That's great media right there. That's like here's a baby, I want to kiss a baby, and it starts screaming, right? That's the equivalent. That's, you know, media death right there. But, you know, he goes on. He's still leader of the party, and no one's decided to oust him around.
What's the alternative? The other guy, well, look, Scotty for marketing is incompetent and just out of touch and disingenuous and all these wonderful things, but mostly harmless. It's like, I don't know if you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's the Earth's description.
So The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is this massive encyclopedia, electronic book that a Ford prefect was doing research for on Earth for 20 years. the friend of Arthur Dance. And so this 20 years of research he had spent on Earth, or I think it was 20 years, so it had been reduced to a single line, because Arthur Dance said, "Oh, is the Earth in there?" Right? He goes, "Oh yeah, it's here, it's here." Okay, well, what does it say about the Earth? Go on, Dave.
It's 2 words. These 20 years gets boiled down to 2 words, and that is mostly harmless.
Yeah, so I guess that's all goodness. So I guess I can describe ScoMo, Slow-Mo, what do you call them, as mostly harmless. Whereas Dutton, Peter Dutton, he is
He's Voldemort.
I don't trust him. He's evil, man. He's an evil dude. He's got no compassion. He's got I don't think he's got one empathetic body in his bone in his body. No. He's completely devoid. Yeah, you know what? If there were a real life Voldemort, and I had to cast again, no makeup necessary. I just cast him as he is. That's
right.
Right. Thank you very much.
I've got the impression from his evil, in my impression of him, evil, unfeeling, doesn't care, party line's the most important, whatever the party line was. If the party line was, you need to grind your parents up to a paste and serve them to the hungry, he would grind his own parents up into a paste.
Yeah.
I think
he would just bits, they can sting you.
I was just following orders, Mackie.
Following orders. Right? Hey, come on, march along, come on.
That's the funny point. I think that look, if he was in a different party, I think he'd be exactly the same evil personality as I can't describe it. No one likes him. And there was we have a couple of parties in Australia, and the other one is the National Party. And if the National Party wasn't in a coalition with the Liberal Party, the two parties joined as one and sharing their voter base, then the Liberal Party would never get into power. They would just never have enough numbers to get in.
That's true.
And the National Party had a leadership spill this week, and Barnaby Joyce, we called him the Beetroot, who was all up for family values, and then found out that his girlfriend was pregnant, and his wife didn't care for that very much, because he was still married at the time. And that was his staffer, his own staffer. So he was, stooping the secretary. And then he had to try to make everything right. It was hilarious. So he went for the leadership role, and they went, yeah, not so much, actually. He talked it up like it's going to be awesome, and then he didn't get it.
So the thing is, he thinks this is really, and this is, thank you, Dave, for mentioning this. This is really the cruxy of Australian party politics. This guy who ran on the platform, National Party is very, very conservative, right? In Australia. Very conservative party, looking out for the bush, the farmers.
Oh,
so
it's
traditional.
All the water.
Yeah, very much like what you would like Western Christian values. That's right. Really what they're quite strong on, Bible and all that, right? It's goodness, right? Whatever. But this guy, so the thing is, he thinks he's still with a chance after having cheated on his wife, after having left his wife for his mistress, and then complaining that he's not making enough money while he's not the boss anymore. You take a pay cut. I mean, how can you possibly live on $20,000 a week?
I barely make any money at all.
So bring in that second lobster and the condor eggs. I'm ready now. He's completely out of touch. I'm thinking, because I used to think, you looked at him, he looked like a proper bush kind of guy, like a proper guy. You think, he's salt of the earth, and I didn't really think much else of him. I thought, okay, he's looking out for the bush. That's good stuff. Somebody has to, right?
Yeah.
But then all the other stuff comes out, and now you look at him very differently, and you look at in the way he maneuvers and purports himself, and it's just it's disappointing. It's sad. It's just not very good at all.
Yeah, he was responsible for selling all of the water in a river system. That goes through 3 different states of Australia, and he sold it all to a foreign farming, and no water goes past their door. And no one audited the use of these, the water usage rights.
Yeah. Look, I have no words. So again, didn't want to belabor the point, but I just wanted to stress that I'm not making fun of the American system or American.
No. We've got our own problems.
Oh yeah, look, that's right. And look, these days we are short on statesmen and stateswomen. We have a lot of politicians, a lot of functionaries, a lot of bureaucrats and middle management, and that's wrong. And the reason we have all of this is it's actually a good reason. Right? We haven't really gone through any crises. We haven't had massive wars, global wars that would bring out the best in people. Kill off a generation of useless. Well, I don't know, layabouts. Not that really happens anymore because the useless layabouts, they usually get away. This goes back right to this American Civil War. I just want to quickly mention this because it's a fact that came to my attention recently. Again, I like history. So as the Civil War is being fought, right, the base of the economic power the South had was pretty much slave labor, right? That was why the South, in opposition to the North, had such an economic advantage. And that's where the money was. So Abraham Lincoln tried to break that economic power by outlawing slavery. Now you could argue that he also was a good person and thought that nobody should be a slave. But look, I just don't buy it. Right? The main reason why Abraham Lincoln went after slave ownership was to cripple the South. But the South knew that, right? And off they went to fight them because without the slaves, they would have to pay people now. we can't make any more obscene profits here. Hello. I've got people here that I just barely keep alive with the gruel I'm feeding them. But if I have to, hire some real people, that's no good. It's going to cut into my margins very much. So what I learned is this: as the Confederate Army was fighting and the going got tough and they were sort of beaten back, letters of relief, I think they were called. I might be wrong, but there were these orders issued. Anyone that owned more than 20 slaves no longer had to fight, and then anyone who owned more than 10 slaves or whatever. So the number of slaves that you owned became your ticket out of the war or fighting the war. Whereas the poor people that would have, the poor white people, let's call them, that would have benefited from there not being any slaves anymore because. If there are no slaves, everybody has to get paid. Mm-hmm. And they would no longer be poor because they would get paid a fair day's wage for a fair day's work in the South. They were fighting the war on the behalf of the rich slave owners, which decided, no, I don't want to die for this. I'll send poor white people out there because they're useless to me anyway. I don't want to pay them. Mm-hmm. I want to be sure that I can still have slaves tomorrow. And I thought that was just astounding, the level of corruption. And I'm astonished that not people would have rebelled against those slave owners, because it was clear they were sending off the poor white people who couldn't afford to own slaves, right, to fight their war and die. Whereas Maggie, they said home.
That is not different than any other war at any other time, right? Surely.
That's true. But I thought it was just a nice piece of double irony, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's astounding. Look, you're right. Of course, you're right. And that's really the problem. The rich people, and this is really the hypothesis as well at work here. The rich people, the powerful people. Let me quote, not the rich, because rich alone doesn't matter. We've seen a few rich people bite the bullet, right? So money alone is no good. It's power that you're after. Okay, so the powerful people make their own rules. All the laws, all the policing, all that stuff is only for us. Right, and it's really important. Sorry, Dune. The reason I said heavy metal is because the link you posted is a heavy metal link. I was just wondering if you would send a link to that has some information on bioweapons. So the question to Dune in the chat room is: do you have any interesting or groundbreaking information on bioweapons? Because just to let you know, we're going to talk about the deaths of the scientists starting in 2002, 2000 pretty much. Hundreds of microbiologists died under extremely suspicious circumstances. If you've got anything more explosive or anything more interesting than that, I'd be super curious to find out. And of course, you get full naming rights, and we wouldn't dream of passing it off as our own research. So if you've got anything interesting, Dune, please feel free. And to everybody listening, I'm just having a chat in the chat room to a listener by the handle of Dune. But yeah, so we are living in a world that is completely run by the elites, and everybody else is just hanging on for dear life, more or less, right? And you can't really have too many conversations with too many people. Dave and I had a very interesting lunch the other day where we tried to
discuss
speed talk through the hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't easy, was it?
No.
But look, the person that we spoke to had a very open mind. I don't want to mention his name because I don't know if he wants to be identified. But
I have to say that he was accepting, and seemed vaguely knowledgeable in some of the areas, which was really good to hear. So remember, Meki, my shock and surprise comes from people who have zero clue and zero interest.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Yeah.
He took it all very well, to be honest.
No. But the truth is, I've known him for many, many years, and we've traveled together extensively as well, and we've worked together quite a bit. And we had conversations, not necessarily as involved as the one we had, or maybe as directed and really to the point. But sure. It's important to open people's minds and have conversations once in a while outside the fold. I'm assuming that we're preaching to the choir here on Revolution Radio. I assume that a lot of people listening to this come to this radio station because they want to hear something different, or they want to hear something that they might not hear somewhere else. People asking questions, and again, we could be wrong. Okay, just let's be very clear that other news outlets might not ask. Okay, and we are asking the questions, and I'm always curious. See, look, Dave, the thing that I found curious with this outbreak was the timing of it, as we mentioned last week. And for me, that is still the biggest thing, the timing. It couldn't have been at a better time to hurt China. Right? If you want to hurt China, right, anyway, this was the perfect time and the perfect way. But the knock-on effect not only hurts China, right, which is a bonus, I think, for whoever does it. No. What it does, it hurts China's business partners, right? Because we've got industries in Australia that will shut down, and people will lose their jobs permanently because of the Chinese cancelling of orders, seafood, for example, other things as well. We discussed this last time. So this is a multi-level, multi-layer attack. If it were an attack, I'm not saying it's an attack. If it were an attack, timing and method,
spot on. That's right.
genius.
Completely. If it was engineered. I think they did a great job with it. Meki, I talked about the fires, but I forgot to say that I woke up this morning to being flooded in. I've got 2 streets access out to the real world from where I live. 2 streets. These are, urban streets, suburban streets, and they were both underwater. One nearly 2 meters underwater. It was like 1.6 meters underwater.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
and
incredible.
The other one was only 30 centimeters underwater. However, you're not supposed to drive through moving water. If it's standing water, that's a different thing, but moving water is certainly a dangerous thing to drive through. And unless you've got a huge four-wheel drive that can, is made to do it, then that's your bag. But and then we lost power because a tree went down and blew through the power lines. So now you couldn't get to the bit that was shut off, the easy one, because of the tree down and the live wires. So our house was out for pretty much all day, and I only got it back within the hour of the show starting this afternoon. So that was something else, if it continues, because we're experiencing right now a little bit of a lull in the rain and the storm, because today it was nearly 100 km/h winds, and I think we had nearly 150 or maybe 200 mil of rain today, which is just off the charts for us. And it's good that my friends that live out west on the other side of the ranges were getting water in the towns that they were going to have to shut down. So, we take the hard while they take the good. You know what I mean? Does it make sense? So I'm okay that I got flooded in. I can still work. My daughter can miss a couple of days of school or whatever. That's fine. But for those whole towns with 100,000 or 80,000 people who have no water and have to, shut down one of those 90 towns. It blew the fires out completely. They're completely extinguished now, by the way, on the eastern coast. But it's something. This is extraordinary. Meki, I was trying to tell someone, if you could control the weather, as clearly the Americans military were at the end of World War II were saying, if only we could control the weather, we'd have a better run at it, at this all war thing. No doubt there's method in and technology that allows them to do stuff. Could you imagine if all of it, the drought, fires, the floods, the winds, everything that you can, I think it's everything, if you could control it, if you're trying to make something wetter, are you taking it away from something that needed the wet? Do you know what I mean? I wonder if you'd be continually trying to fix all the mess, right?
Within the system that we have here, the Earth, you mean, like a closed system? It depends. if you, so anything we've seen so far, even though there have been atmospheric effects on it now because of the size of it, is entirely too small to affect anywhere else in a meaningful fashion. So what I mean by that is, so the rain that we've seen, even the downpour that we're experiencing, even massive downpours, even flooding downpours, right? They are not enough to upset the balance of the global system because, again, the Earth is very, very big, everybody. It's very, very big. But we're doing a good job of polluting it. However, if you were to drain Lake Baikal, right, for example, if you're doing that, or if you filled in the Mediterranean or drained it, right, or whatever, or if you melted the ice caps, right, those things, 100%. Because if you could do all that, you would then just chasing your tail to fix all the knock-on effects you've just caused, which is, by the way, I think something we're seeing now, right? So, because exactly, right. So the thing is, we had this almost like a blockage of let's call it a virtual wall in the atmosphere that let no moisture in from the west of Australia, and it just wouldn't come in, and it was just a drought, and it was hot, and it was dry, and no moisture. Now we had this cloud system, and I saw the cloud system on the radar screen. The cloud system that is now moving over the east coast inland into Australia is almost the size of Australia. That cloud is almost the size of Australia. So it had to form somewhere. Yeah, it looks like, that's exactly what it looks like, right? Now, unusual because we're not in a monsoon kind of, an area of the globe. This is not really our... It's not our longitude. It's not normal, right? But nonetheless, there it is, right? So someone was maybe saying, "Oh, damn! Look, there's this drought we caused. What do we do? We just shove these clouds over here." And cloud alone is not enough. Cloud alone is not enough. It has the water. In order for precipitation to actually occur, there has to be a lot of water in the clouds, right? And particulate matter as well, so the droplets can form. If droplets don't form, you don't get water. You get a whole bunch of water vapor. It doesn't help you. It has to come down low from the atmosphere as well, because if it stays up high, it's just not gonna form the droplets because it's too cold. And if the cloud mass comes down lower and then hits maybe some warm air as well, that's when you get these thunderstorms, and that's really what you're after. Even though right now what we're seeing, these are not thunderstorms. These are just rains. We're just seeing rains. They're not electrical storm systems here, right? Just to be very clear. So no, Dave, I completely agree with you. It's you would chase your own tail. I think that's the music. Don't go anywhere. This is Listener Funded Radio. Listener Funded Radio.
Take the time during the break to donate to the station, guys, and we'll see you after the very, very short break. You're back with David Meki's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 US per month. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, well, welcome aboard. This is a tinfoil hat zone, so keep your arms within the vehicle. Turn off your personal reality inverters. Did I unmute? Yes, I did. Thank heavens. And please, no flash photography. We are glad you're on board, and thank you for inviting us into your lives. So follow subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platforms. We're halfway through show number 412. Yeah, I'm glad it works. I like that with the 3 numbers. Get yourself some great merchandise, some merch. That's not quite Australian enough. Get yourself some merch from the station's website or an EMP proof on you, mate. Yeah. Yeah, Dazza, Kazza, Bazza. Instead of Karen, Darren, and what was the other? Barry. Yeah, Shari. Shazza. Wazza. That was Warren. Yeah, Wazza. If you haven't found it, there's a couple of YouTube clips of people trying to explain how to speak Australian, and basically whatever the person's name is, you just put za at the end, and you only use the first syllable. It's very funny. Anyway, so an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, or maybe a seed pack, but follow the instructions carefully and ensure that you understand your customs restrictions before making a purchase. So, Meki, this is Biological Weapons Part 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can cite some examples. Mm-hmm. 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 I think the contemplation that this is a thing disturbs people, right? It's the problem. It's one of those things that people have issue with. Now, just to highlight what Becky said before, if it's a conspiracy, I don't have to believe it. If it is like the US government did chemical testings off the rooftops in Detroit, that happened. It was discovered to have happened, proven to have happened. It became a thing, and now it's just history. But when you say that to people, that, oh, if you know, I found this thing, you should maybe, if you really are interested in knowing how your government is willing to treat you, to experiment on you and don't care, well, here's a great example. And it is that. And they go, but, the governments don't do that, man. And go, well, they send people to die in war. They don't care. They really don't care. If they really cared, they'd afford better weapons and good training and possibly better diplomacy. Because I think that's the thing that stops the wars. But, maybe they have to happen. So my point with this, Mackie, is, yes, it's maybe a little difficult to appreciate the scale and what this means. If you knew what the motive was or the people behind it, maybe it would make more sense. And that's why you've got to uncover some of these things to really get a broader picture. Back to you in the studio, Mackie. Yay! 4 days later, Nguyen, how do I pronounce that? Nguyen Van Set, 44, died at work in Geelong, Australia, in a laboratory accident. He entered an airlocked storage lab and died from exposure to nitrogen. Other scientists at the Animal Diseases Facility of the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, that's the CSIRO, had just come to fame for discovering a virulent strain of mousepox, which could be modified to affect smallpox. Then, in February, the Russian microbiologist Viktor Korshunov, 56, an expert in intestinal bacteria of children around the world, was bashed over the head near his home in Moscow. 5 days later, the British microbiologist Ian Langford, 40, was found dead in his home near Norwich, England, naked from the waist down and wedged under a chair. He was an expert in environmental risks and disease. 2 weeks later, 2 prominent microbiologists died in San Francisco. Tanya Holzmeier, 46, a Russian who moved to the US in 1989, focused on part of the human molecular structure that could be affected best by medicine. She was killed by fellow microbiologist Matthew Hung, 38, who shot her 7 times when she opened the door to a pizza delivery. Then he shot himself. The final 2 deaths came 1 day after the other in March. David Wynne Williams, 55, a respected astrobiologist with the British Antarctic Survey, who studied the habits of microbes that might survive in outer space, died in a freak road accident near his home in Cambridge, England. He was hit by a car while he was jogging. The following day, Stephen Mostow, 63, known as Dr. Flu, FLU, for his expertise in treating influenza and a noted expert in bioterrorism, died when his airplane he was piloting crashed near Denver. So what does any of this mean, Mackie? Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take my teeth out so I can put them in later. Expertise. This is Tanya Holzmeier, 46, expertise in Russian, who moved to the US in 1989, focused on part of the human molecular structure that could be affected best by medicine. Circumstances of death, killed by fellow microbiologist. That's the one who shot her, pretending to deliver pizza. Wan Huang, the 38 microbiologist, shot himself after shooting fellow. Yep, that's that one. We spoke about David Wynne Williams as well, and Stephen Mostow, There's Ben Q again, Benito Q. Carlo Urbani, 46, expertise. A dedicated and internationally respected Italian epidemiologist, I got that right, who did work of enduring value combating infectious illnesses around the world. Circumstances of death, died in Bangkok from SARS. Good on you. We know what that is. It was a new disease then, that was back in 2003. And that he actually helped identify that virus. Thanks to his prompt action, the epidemic was contained in Vietnam. However, because of the close daily contact with SARS patients, he contracted the infection on March 11th. He was admitted to hospital in Bangkok and isolated. Less than 3 weeks later, he died. Dr. Leland Rickmond of UCSD, 47, a resident of Carmel Valley, expertise, an expert in infectious disease who helped the county prepare to fight bioterrorism after September 11. How did he die? He was in the African nation of Lesotho with Dr. Chris Matthews of UCSD, the director of the university's Owen Clinic, for AIDS patients. Dr. Rickman had complained of a headache and had gone to lie down. When he didn't appear for dinner, Matthews checked on him and found him dead. A cause has not yet been determined. Then we have this is July. Wow. So July 18th, 2003, Dr. David Kelly, 59, a British scientist and authority on biological warfare. Did we mention this guy already? Yeah, right. Okay. So British Ministry of Defence, the MOD, and formerly United Nations Weapons Inspector in Iraq. He came to public attention in July 2003 when an unauthorised discussion he had off the record with BBC journalist Andrew Gilligan about the British government's dossier on weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was cited by Gilligan and led to a major controversy, and that was that there weren't any. Kelly's name became known to the media as Gilligan's source, and he was called to appear on the 15th of July 2003 before the Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Select Committee investigating the issues Gilligan had reported. Kelly was questioned aggressively about his actions. He was found dead 2 days later. We all know the outcome of that. We've got... Oh, yeah, that's the same person. Oh, here you go. Biological Warfare Weapons Specialist, Senior Post at the Ministry of Defence and expert on DNA sequencing. See, I don't know. There's no name for this one, Mickey. Head of microbiology at Porton Down, and worked with 2 American scientists. Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah, right, okay. That's right. So Benito Q and Don Wiley, that's right. He helped Vladimir Pashishnik found Regma Biotechnologies. Did he... always say they were founders of that company, which had a contract with the US Navy for the diagnostic and therapeutic treatment of anthrax. Though there's another one, Mickey. Goodness. Circumstances of death. He was found dead after seemingly slashing his wrist in a wooded area near his home at Southmoor, Oxfordshire. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and anthrax. Knowing that anthrax. Well, go on. You carry on, Mackie. Mm. Mm. That was the one before, yep. Hmm. Goodness me. Yeah, crazy talk. Yeah, that has all the hallmarks of it. I'm not allowed to make that. Sure. That's funny because he was right. That'll do it. Yeah. July 1st, 2004, Edward Hoffman, 62. Expertise. Aside from his role as a professor, Hoffman held leadership positions within the UCLA medical community, worked to develop the first human PET scanner in 1973 at Washington University in St. Louis. Circumstance of death? Unknown. The next day, July 2nd, 2004, Larry Bustard, 53, expertise, a Sandia scientist who helped develop a foam spray to clean up congressional buildings and media sites during the anthrax scare in 2001. Worked at Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque. His team came up with a new technology used against biological and chemical agents. Circumstances of death? Unknown. 4 days later, July 2004, Stephen Tibet, 42, expertise, an associate professor and epidemiologist at University of Washington, a world-renowned HIV doctor and researcher who worked with HIV patients in a vaccine clinical trial for the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. Circumstances of death: died of an unknown illness. Wow. 21st of July. This is only 2 weeks later. Bassem El Mardares. Expertise. He was a PhD chemist. Circumstances of death. His mutilated body was found in the city of Samarra, Iraq, and had been tortured before being killed. Oh, it's a suicide, Meki. Or was he accidented? I like accidented. That's my new one. August 12, 2004. Professor John Clark. Expertise. Head of the science lab which created Dolly the sheep. Oh, that was the first cloned sheep. Professor Clark led the Roslin Institute in Midlothian, one of the world's leading animal biotechnology research centers. He played a crucial role in creating the transgenic sheep that earned the Institute worldwide fame. But he died. He was found hanging in his holiday home. That's what you do. I'm going to go on holidays and hang myself in my holiday home. Wow, that's... You know, each one of these deaths, Mickey, I'm just going to pause. Each one of these deaths is so... industry deaths. You could do each one of these in some way, you know. A car ran off the road, a stroke, you know, end up in 3 suitcases floating in a river. All of them. That's right. Okay. That's right. Natural. That's right. September 5th, 2004. Mohammed Turki Hussein Al Talakani. Expertise. Iraqi nuclear scientist. He was a practicing nuclear physicist since 1984. Circumstances of death. He was shot dead in Mahmudiyah, south of Baghdad. Now, that's once again suicide for sure. November 2nd, 2004, John R. L. Montague. Expertise. He was head of U.S. Infectious Diseases Unit under Tommy Thompson. Was NIAID Deputy Director. Circumstances of death. Died while in Mexico. No cause stated. He died of Mexico. That's December 21st, 2004. Taleb Abraham Al-Daher. Expertise. Iraqi nuclear scientist. Circumstances of death. Now this is a bit long. He was shot dead north of Baghdad by unknown gunmen. He was on his way to work at the university when armed men opened fire on his car, and it was crossing a bridge at the time. 57 kilometers northeast of Baghdad, the vehicle swerved off the bridge and fell into the river, and Al-Daher, who was a professor at the local university, was removed from the submerged car and rushed to the local hospital where he was pronounced dead because, you know, drowning and gunshot wound. It's like when your horse breaks its leg and you shoot it, right? Rasputin. There you go. But see, the horse that broke its leg and you shoot it, now it's got a broken leg and a gunshot wound. That's an old joke. December 29, 2004, Tom Thorne and Beth Williams. Expertise, 2 wildlife scientists, husband and wife wildlife veterinarians, who were nationally prominent experts on chronic wasting disease and, brucellosis? Circumstances of death. They were killed in a snowy weather crash on US 287 in northern Colorado. Wow. How about 2005? That's a pretty big 2004. Wow. In the pancreas. Wait. I can only imagine one of his courses. You know, you're sitting there and he's giving his talk about something, and he says, "Look, in this jar is is the Ebola virus. Hey, you in front, catch." Oh, woot, woot, woot. Hazmat suits on. You know the drill, people.